This is the second video about visualizing ETL automation metadata using graph and graph techniques. And in the previous video, I've talked about the directed graph markup language and how it's so useful for visualizing this metadata, but it also lacks the interactivity, the event handling that we really want to make it an input and a development and design tool. So I've been looking around, and the yFiles library from yWorks has been amazing to develop this interactive solution with. And this is what I would like to show in today's video. So to get started, I've started up the team application again. And what I would like to do is to create a couple of different versions of the metadata so we can cycle through the, the data warehouse model, if you like, how it was at a point in time and how we can show that visually. So what I'll do first is to go to manage metadata, just expand the screen for a bit, and I've got the normal sample metadata that you can generate out the box. But as you can see here, there is a version 0.0 because this is just a standard sample. But if I can make some changes, for example, I see here that this hub customer is supported by two context tables, set customer and set customer additional details. What I can do is, for example, move one attribute to another, or I can remove the table altogether. So let's do that the first one first for this version. So set customer has a couple of mappings associated with it. But if I want to see postcode, for example, added to a different table, I can make a change here. And now the postcode is now mapped to additional details. What I should have done is to update it as a release. So let's do that again. Let's put another one in there as well. All right, there we go. So now I've checked major release, and if I save the changes, the team application will snapshot the physical model as it knows it at this point in time and matches it to this metadata version. And in the team application, I can still cycle through these two versions as I would before. You can see here I did an update, I did an in-place update on the version 0, and now I've made another update for the version 1. And even more, if I want to remove this table altogether, I can remove the mappings here and the mappings here, and then save it as another version. So now I've got a version 2.0 that doesn't have this set customer additional detail at all. Again, if I go back one version, it's there slightly differently, and then back, and then it's gone. So now I've got a bit of history in team that I can then show in the graph. Again, the reason I've selected the yFiles library is that it provides this huge array of event handling and interactivity and options you can code into your application. And in my case, I've been using that to basically redevelop what DGML can provide, but then in an interactive way. It's been really great, and the team from yWorks have been awesome in their support. I can really recommend giving it a go if you're looking into any kinds of graph visualization. So what I will do is I will start up my team graph solution, which is on a private GitHub at this stage because I'm still testing it. And the first thing that I do if I open it, it will show a DGML-like representation of the information. So the same applies. I've got a hub customer that is sourced from, in this case, 4 different tables. And this hub customer is evaluated to be in a subject area customer because the customer plus its additional context tables together have all the customer information. The customer additional details table is sourced from the profiler persistent staging error table, and set customer is also sourced from this table to an extent. And the blue lines you can see here are the internal derived mappings that the application can detect based on the gray lines, which are the real source to target mappings that are also visible in the team table grid. Same here. If I hover over this mapping, you can see the business key definition, the source, the target. We're talking in terms of nodes as the data objects and edges as the lines. So the next thing we can do is then to look at what kind of versions there are. And based on what is administered in team, there's various things we can see here. And I'm going to the second one straight away. And you can see already that in this particular example, the additional details is gone. So this drop down here provides a different mechanism to look at the different versions of your metadata model. And what I would like to do with this approach is to use it as a design and development tool. So as opposed to adding the information you need to map your source data objects to your target data objects and attribute mappings and all that kind of stuff, it is much easier if I can just click it together. And this is what DGML lacks, and this is what yFiles enables. For example, if I click here on the screen and I create a new table, for example, hub customer 2. This is a really bad data vault example, but it immediately shows that I can do things with this node. And you can see that based on the context where I'm putting it, I can add it to a subject area. This already gives me information that I can then use to map information together. So creating source to target mappings with whatever information needs to be added becomes easy because I can just click it and then link it together right here. This is the equivalent of the data grid in Team, of course. But it's even more convenient to work like this because it also allows me to much easier zoom out and zoom in on different levels of abstraction. So for example, if I collapse all groups, immediately it gives me this overview of information that there is. And I can use the different layouts to really show how everything hangs together. And even more importantly, I can code against how this all should behave. So if I want to represent a different type of information between different kind of representation to look at the data model at a certain level, or do calculations like the shortest path or the most the connected graphs through from a specific point, then I can do that from here. And this is what I need to ultimately create the dimensional model or the delivery, where all the point in time calculation, the date math, the backdated adjustments, the bitemporal stuff, all that kind of complexity is then then be implemented using a pattern if I just know which steps to take through all these nodes. And by allowing a programmatic way to zoom in on different areas of the model, it makes it much easier to understand what's happening. And because the yFiles library allows to program against those events, you can develop a whole application around it. And this is what I'll be working on in the next couple of weeks. I'm really excited about it. I think the library is great. The yWorks team has been super helpful. And I really do think this is the way forward to develop the engine concept I've been writing on the weblog. Because if I can develop and design against these subject areas and then make sure that the interactivity between the team graph and the graph backend, the data table and the activation and the creation of the JSON files, if that all works and it's synchronized, then it already works down to the code generation in Virtual Data Warehouse. So this is what I think can be done, and developing on the subject area and then deriving the optimal setup of the physical model tables is sort of the next step here. So I look forward to discussing this, and once again, many thanks for yWorks for making this available. Um, watch this space.